Matt Gray may hate me for this, but I will share my 22 lessons from his new LinkedIn course that got him almost 700,000 followers. I promise this video is packed with value because I will literally be exposing his LinkedIn secrets that got him where he is today, at growing 110,000 followers per month at its peak. You will learn why he edits his post 30 minutes after sharing, his 4 key factors to any post on LinkedIn, his engagement secrets, how he uses UTM links, and 17 other golden nuggets. So let's start with the first one. Why should you care about posting on LinkedIn in the first place? As I've mentioned, 45% of his leads, of his total revenue, which is currently over 10 million per year, comes from LinkedIn, according to himself as of June 2024. And 45% of 1.1 million per month is more than $400,000 per month, purely from LinkedIn alone, which to me is crazy. Because Dan Koe, for example, mentioned that LinkedIn is only 5% of his total revenue. Now that 45% number tells me a lot. This is why I care a lot about LinkedIn now. For me, YouTube, long form, and LinkedIn are the main priorities right now. I post everywhere, but these two, they're proven to bring in a lot of high quality people who have high intent to buy from Matt Gray, Dan Koe, Alex Hormozi, and a lot of others that share these stats, like Ali Abdaal, for example. Now, LinkedIn is even more crazy because for me, writing a LinkedIn post sometimes takes 15 minutes, maybe 20, whereas YouTube long form, well, they take me a lot more time. I have an editor too, even though you don't need to. I have an editor to improve the average view duration, but I hope you see the point that I'm trying to make. YouTube long form may take hours or even days to produce and edit if you edit yourself or if you want to edit, whereas LinkedIn takes minutes per day. Of course, towards 1 or 2 hours, depending on what you do. And it's even more crazy when I heard that Matt doesn't spend any time on LinkedIn himself. I'll talk more about it, how he does that, later in the video. But first, let's go to the second nugget. He mentions there are 4 key factors to any LinkedIn post. Therefore, the things that actually matter, aka they have a big impact, right? Not all these small little things that add up and are for more advanced people. But according to him, the 4 most important things to nail down first. Those are the hook, the value-dense writing, so the body, the text body. Then we have the image itself attached with the post. And then we have engagement. And when we talk about the hook, Matt has just been very good at writing these hooks by writing a lot on Twitter. And of course, modeling what works for others and for himself based on his Twitter stats and LinkedIn stats. And then for the body, what he uses a lot are called rehooks. They're basically the same, but just used throughout the post. They can be a 1-sentence, 2-line sentence, or even 3 sentences that are sometimes what he calls mic dropping moments. Basically sentences, when you read them, that could be standalone tweets and perform really well, of course. Besides that, there's a lot of formatting things he goes over, but of course, out of respect for Matt, I won't go over everything that he talks about in the course. But rehooks play a significant role for him and his posts, and of course, the dwell time that comes from people reading his posts longer. Now, before we talk about his engagement secrets, because they are very important, they play a bigger role than you might want. Let's first talk about his image. If you just look up his profile, you see that he uses handwritten posts all the time, not just once a week, not a few posts here and there. Right now, since I believe he mentioned January this year, he's posting them all the time on LinkedIn. 1 post a day, always with a handwritten post next to it. And I've been starting to do this as well, because he mentioned that they play a very big role on his engagement, his follower growth. He doesn't really share why, but here are my assumptions why they perform so well for him and also for me, because I've been posting them a lot lately. First of all, people just love reading. At least I love reading handwritten posts. There's just something about it. Which brings me to the second reason. I think it has to do with nostalgia, right? When we were back in school, we were handwriting a lot. Even though we had to do it at school, I liked it. Many people like handwriting, journaling. And then, of course, another, I would say, big reason is that they are very different from all the other posts, Caruso posts on LinkedIn, or just images of someone, photo shoot. They are normal. These handwritten posts, very few people are using them, which is why I think it's a very big opportunity and why I've spent a lot of time creating an SOP for my employee to write them for me, because they take time to write. By the way, if you want to access my SOP that I took 7 hours creating, then you can check the link below. Only for a limited time, for a small group of people, I will make it $1, which is crazy. But if you watch some of my other videos, I care about providing a lot of value, because that has just great second order, third order consequences. And then the fourth reason why they perform so well is because of input bias, or better said, people pay attention when you paid effort. So more money, time, or other resources put into something will be valued higher by the audience. So simply put, more effort is more perceived value by the person. More so when you see the effort instead of being told the effort, it works even better. So if I tell you I handwrote a post for 1 hour versus you see the handwritten post and assume how much time it took, that is always better. So just keep that in mind whenever you try to use input bias in your advantage. But as I mentioned, they take a lot of time to write. It's not a trick. So Matt mentioned he used to draw them himself, I believe only for a month or so, and it took him about 30 to 60 minutes for the whole process, which involves a lot of things. I mean, you have to choose what to handwrite in the post. You can decide to make the same handwritten post as what you will use for the body text with the LinkedIn post. Matt doesn't do this, I don't do this, because it's of course better if you have additional information or whatever you try to post on LinkedIn, but usually it's valuable information. Better to have additional information versus just the same one, but formatted it differently by a photograph of a handwriting. So decide what you want to handwrite if you are going to do this, but I highly recommend trying it at least for yourself a few times. And if you have the money or you already have a team member or multiple team members where you can choose someone to delegate this to, of course, definitely check out my SOP because it's only $1. Depending on when you watch this, it may go up over time, but that will allow you to delegate it right away. Just change a few things in the SOP. Of course, because I use Google Drive, you may use Dropbox for file management, but I thought of everything. You can see that in some of the pictures that I included. You will be surprised by how good the SOP is. I took 7 hours to create it, and of course over a period of 5 months I already saw Matt doing these handwritings, and I was trying to figure out how can I do them without having to spend a lot of time myself, and of course without my team member to write for me. I just don't like that because I think that will lead to lower trust. And you can say, well, then use AI. I don't like that either because the same happens, lower level of trust when people see it. And this is just a personal thing, but I want to make sure that when someone reads my post, they know it's written by me. And they can tell because it is. Some people may try to trick it. I don't think that's wise. It can save a lot of time. It's just not something I want because of second order, third order consequences, long-term trust. I can make a whole separate video about that. I leave it up to you. It's not a rule. But I wanted to make sure that the handwriting posts are mostly in my own words. Therefore, only filler words here and there to make sure that the format is good. It's easily to read, but mostly quoting myself because I write long letters. I have a lot of them on my website, and they can be used to be transformed into a handwriting post that I can supply when I write my LinkedIn post. So if you want to know how I do that, or now one of my team members does this, handwriting my posts in my own words without my involvement, because I only check once a week the layouts, how they look. It only takes me around 10 minutes, and then I can approve them or may change some things here and there, and then she can start writing, doing the photo shoot, because that's how I approach it. I approach it seriously. You don't have to. You can just take a few pictures with your phone, but since she batches the photo shoot, it is worth the effort in my eyes to take good photographs with a good camera, with a good nice background, in this case very nice wood. I like wood. Have some props here and there with candle lighting, whatever it is. And it doesn't take too much time, but of course I don't want to be doing that if I can delegate. Now, one of the most important things for these handwritings is the header. Basically, the title can be a title and a subtitle. Just look at how Matt does it, how I do it. But it's very important that that one is optimized for getting the attention. And you know this, hooks, blah, blah, blah. But it is important. I've made sure that in the SOP, I've made very clear how we can make the best headers. And through the approval process, I always check the headers before she starts writing so that it is likely to get the most attention. Now, of course, Matt talks briefly about these handwriting posts. He doesn't give away all the things, the exact process behind the scenes. And of course, I want to improve on the handwriting itself, how it looks, how it performs. And I always think for myself, you don't want to copy. You want to look at what works and improve on it further. So that's where the visuals come into play in these handwriting posts. So you can include no visuals. With that, I mean no drawings, no diagrams, no pyramid, no formulas, no visual element that gets the attention. Even Matt is not using this often right now. He has done it quite some times in the past, and he still does, but not in each one. But I care about this because I do think it gets the attention. Just a nice small drawing, even one, already has an impact when I see a post. So this is not proven by data, even though I can, and I will be testing this, but it will add an element that is likely to get more attention. So you have the headline over here. And then I ask my team member, of course, I've written it down in the SOP, to include visual elements in the post where she sees fit, at least one. And I've also made sure that, I went very deep into this. I also made sure that we have a ChatGPT prompt or Claude, which gives us or her ideas for different diagrams to use, because they are great visual elements. People just love to see formulas. People love to see diagrams in all senses, graphs. Of course, they have to be related to the post, but now she gets ideas on what she can include. And of course, based on what I've written as well and what I've already created, I've created already diagrams in the past. And if that's not the case, but also sometimes as an addition, we want to include a drawing. It can be as simple as a formula, can be as simple as a hashtag sign if we talk about hashtag, or it can be the logo of the company that we talk about. For example, in this case, if I will be making a hand draw, or will ask her to create a hand drawing based on this video, or the letter that I write based on this, and then she will likely include the LinkedIn logo, right? Because that gets the attention. Again, you don't have to do this. I definitely do it, and I recommend it. Now, what else matters for these hand drawings? Numbered list. Ideally, you create a handwriting with a numbered list. Even though the thing you wrote and that your VA that helps you creating these hand drawings, ideally you use a numbered list. Even though the letter that you wrote or whatever you get the source for your VA to use, right? In my case, it's often letters, but it can even be a YouTube video or just a short form post that I wrote, for example, on LinkedIn already. But let's just assume for now that it is a blog article that you wrote or created, whatever. Even though that is not a numbered list, it performs much better if it is in numbers on the handwriting. Also on LinkedIn post itself in the body text. So don't say you have to do it. Matt doesn't say you have to do it, but he strongly recommends using numbered lists. So to make sure that my assistant can convert basically this into a numbered list, while still making sure that it's in my own words, I've created a master prompt that she now uses and really almost flawlessly now is able to create or turn my long form written posts into the most important numbered lists for these hand drawings. And then of course, when you have each number, make sure you order it the right way within the hand drawing, alright? Because people will read from left to right, top to bottom, usually. But then the most bottom sentence is of course read more quickly than somewhere a point in the middle. And the top sentence as well. You get the deal. So make sure that those things, at least I make sure that those points are the most novel ideas. Because I do think that those get the most attention. And people then actually want to read the other stuff, even though the other stuff may be things that they already know. But if I include something on the top or the bottom, which they read as first, which they already know, then they're less likely to read the whole thing. So keep in mind novelty and just look at yourself, whatever you read or watch. If you hear a novel idea at the beginning of a video, at the beginning of an article, at the beginning of an email, you're likely to read the whole thing or at least longer. And then on the bottom, we have a CTA, a call to action. I won't go too deep into that because you can just see what I use, what Matt uses, and see what works for you. And then comes drawing the whole piece, which doesn't have to take too long when you have prepared this, the layout. Of course, when you're doing this on the go, you don't know what to write yet, and you start drawing, I don't think that's the most efficient process at all. So I make sure that we use Figma, but you can use Canva to prepare the layout exactly how it will look like. Of course, not exactly, because some icons will not, they will be hand-drawn, right? But of course, make sure that the dimensions of the layout that you have there are according to the notebook you use to write on, or your assistant writes on. And make sure, at least I do that, to prepare the layout, because then the drawing only takes you around 10 minutes, 15 minutes, perhaps 20 minutes with difficult drawings or if things go wrong. And of course, when you batch the photo shoot by, for example, first having 7 hand drawings ready before you shoot, if you delegate it, of course, because otherwise you can just take a quick picture with your iPhone. But I think when you do this, at least take the effort to take nice photographs, multiple ones. You also post edit them so they look even better, and so that you have multiple variations. So if you want to reuse, let's say one of these hand drawings out of the 5 you create and test with performs really well. Now you have several pictures that you can reuse, or better said, that you can now start using because you only pick the best image to use with the LinkedIn post, or on other platforms because they perform really good on Instagram as well. This is not just for LinkedIn and YouTube community, even TikTok and so on. Just post them everywhere to see what performs well. But then if you've identified one of the hand drawings that performs better than the others, you can now post the same one, let's say 3 months from now, perhaps with a different body text on LinkedIn, or perhaps with a different caption on Instagram or YouTube community. Then you can combine that with a different picture that you took of the same hand drawing. With, in my case, I let her shoot with different backdrops, different backgrounds. I go very much in depth in the SOP, but you get the point. You don't have to do this and you don't have to go that far. It's just what I do, and I do it for a reason. I do think it is worth it. But again, just look and find out for yourself, as always. But I don't just let her take a picture. I also ask her to take videos that we can now use on the short form platform. This is something Matt doesn't do, but I think it's well worth the time to take some videos when you've already spent a lot of time on these hand drawings. By the way, this whole process, when I say a lot of time, how I do it, it perhaps takes 1 hour, roughly. This is a rough idea because I don't create them myself, but this is based on what I've seen so far from my assistant. That takes 1 hour per hand drawing from A to Z, right? So from preparation, the layout, research, finding out the headline to use, etc., the visuals, blah, 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 and then the drawing and then the photo shooting. Of course, this is based on batching as well. Less than 1 hour is not possible based on our process, but definitely can take longer, of course, depending on what you do. So I would say 1 hour to 90 minutes per hand drawing, which isn't that much if you delegate this. But if you do this yourself, of course, this takes time, especially if you post daily on LinkedIn. So videos, I highly recommend taking some videos. You don't even have to use them right now. You can just store them and use them later. I don't post them much right now. I've tried some, but I just have a clear process for posting them or delegating the posting for those videos. But she shoots them all the time, different variations based on what works, because they are very short videos, often just 5 seconds long. But they can perform really well, especially on Instagram Reels, because Instagram heavily incentivizes videos that get rewatched. Versus TikTok, they don't do that as much, at least based on my findings. And then, of course, we have post-edit. Post-editing, the hand drawings, the videos, but especially the best ones in her eyes, right? You're not going to edit all of them, because most of them will not be used. We store the raw images, laid out exactly how we do that in the SOP, including file management. You know, I'm very organized and I have a very clear file naming system, folder management system. Because of course, in the beginning, this is very easy to find. But when you create a lot of these handwriting posts, of course, over time, this becomes one big mess if you don't store it well, and it's difficult to find if you don't rename it the right way. So right now, I can just access the Google Drive, find the best hand drawing that I like the most. She has already selected the 2 best ones, edited them both in Lightroom. In her case, a free alternative for Lightroom. And I just select the best photo. And if I post a video, I can select the best video. And then I just write the LinkedIn post. So this now takes me roughly 10 minutes per week to review and approve before she starts drawing, because I do think that is a good process to follow. Otherwise she starts drawing and I have changes to make and things go wrong and then she has to do them again. Whereas if I were to do it myself, or in Matt's case, it would probably take me 1 to 2 hours per hand drawing, which is roughly 7 to, let's say, 10 hours a week, because there's no review process if you do it yourself, of course. So what's the takeaway here? Try it out for yourself. Make them yourself first, or right away delegate them with the SOP that I created. Create your own SOP and see if they perform well for you, if they're worth doing. To me, they are worth doing. I can reuse them all the time in the future, and they are unique. They perform really well on Instagram as well. So we create 7 of them a week now, which if you delegate this, and let's say it takes 10 hours to do this for your assistant, then just do the math. Whatever your hourly rate is for your assistant, that is how much it will cost you, which is probably not a lot. And to me, well worth it. Which brings me to the next nugget that I learned from watching his course. It's what he calls the 4 magic words. Those are I've, when, and if, that he uses as much as possible in his headlines and of course in the first parts of his body text. Do with that information what you like, but he has seen a pattern across 2 years of posting on LinkedIn and the other platforms like X, which performs quite similar, that these 4 words are highly recommended for him to use. Which brings me to nugget number 5. Use specific numbers. Writing them out in full is even better. So 1 million like this is better than 1 million like this. But of course, this depends, right? Sometimes this means that the post is not just one line, but becomes another line as well, which may have negative consequences. But if that's not the case, then you can do this. Additionally, know that for YouTube titles, you likely want to choose the shorter one, because shorter titles perform always better than longer ones. Well, I take that back. That's not always the case, but that is a pattern that Mr. Beast even himself told. So I like to stick with this for YouTube titles, and I even use these in YouTube titles as well when I do think it is a good case. But I A/B test everything on YouTube. I pay for software that really helps. You don't have to, but I like data. So I don't talk rubbish in the videos, and I don't consume rubbish. And I don't believe rubbish, because beliefs have consequences, especially if they're not true, which most beliefs are not true. So once again, use specific numbers, ideally in your hook. Then number 6 is be personal. So using the I language is much better than they, we. Especially if you are building a personal brand, this is always much better. Otherwise, you're building someone else's brand. If you do case studies of other people, which you can do. I've done them. I will probably do them in the future. I am kind of doing them right now in this video. If you're building your personal brand, it's much better to speak about yourself from the I language. At least that is what he has found performed better for him. And I think we can learn from him. That's why I watched this course. And then he mentioned, try to make it relatable. By the way, all brilliance is Matt, and all wrong interpretations are mine. I've mentioned it already, but if you want to learn as much as possible from Matt about LinkedIn, you have to get the course yourself. That being said, also know that I'm not affiliated with Matt. I actually never spoke with him before. This is just an honest video about the things that I learned when watching. Basically my personal notes, as you can say. Which brings me to point number 7, which is reading level. Now, I quote him, all of your content needs to be at 5th grade reading level. Now, instead of following this as a rule, which basically he implies that you should follow this as a rule, I, as always, recommend finding out what works for you. For Justin Welsh, for instance, who is very large on LinkedIn too. I'm not sure about his exact follower count. I believe it's 600, in the 600,000. But he mentioned in the video that 7th grade performs the best for his audience. So this proves you should find it out for yourself. You don't even have to. I don't check my grade level. At least I check it rarely, because I do think it is a small thing that you should only focus on if you either focus mainly on LinkedIn right now, you have a lot of time on your end to perfect each post, or you're already doing all the other bigger things that have a bigger impact right already. By the way, you can quickly see that by using this free tool. It's called Hemingway Editor. And if you want 70 plus other free tools that I use myself, either daily, weekly, monthly, or have used in the past, that are actually free and useful, not affiliated, not sponsored, you can access my free sheet in the link below. Which brings me to number 8, post publishing. What does he do? He edits his post 30 minutes after publishing. And he's not the only one. Justin Welsh does as well. Big creators do this because they know the impact. These are all the little things, but they matter. And they are quick things you can implement. Instead of the grade level, it takes a consistent effort each time. So what can you do? Well, wait at least for some time. In Matt's case, of course, he gets a lot of engagement within the first 30 minutes. But any outgoing links in your post, LinkedIn doesn't like that. No platform likes that, because they want to keep the people on the platform so they can earn from ads. So LinkedIn doesn't want that, but of course you can. So to avoid your impressions going down from LinkedIn not pushing your post into the algorithm, make sure you at least wait some time to add in your CTA, your call to action, with a link that goes, in my case, sometimes to YouTube or your website, or to buy something, or to book a call, whatever it is. You can also add this in the comments, but I would do the same. Try to avoid that. Any links that you post, just LinkedIn doesn't like it, even if it's in the comments. But again, I sometimes do it right away in the comments. And this is not a rule again. But not posting a link in your post is common practice amongst the bigger creators, because it seems to lower reach. And the first hour is the most important on LinkedIn. It's what they call the golden hour. What I would do if I were you, if you really are serious about this, A/B test it for yourself. See what happens. For example, you post the same post, even though there's a lot of variables. If you post the exact same post 2 days in a row, one with a link, one without, and adding it in 30 minutes after, see what happens. Now, you may not want to do that for the same post, doing it 2 days in a row, but it's the closest as accurate data you can get. Of course, you can have a week in between posting the same thing, or 3 months, which is, by the way, a tip that we go about later in the video. But it leaves you with accurate data, because one day after, of course, there's not much changed in one day. The topic has not become more popular or less popular. If you do it in weekdays, there's not much difference between Mondays and Tuesdays. So I leave that up to you, but I recommend not believing any stuff, but seeing it for yourself, especially based on data. But since they are doing it, I think it is a good place to start from. And that brings me to number 9. Building relationships. Engage more to get more engagement. You can basically put this in very large. Engage, which is a cycle. Engage to get more engagement. It simply works. Now Matt goes deep into showing exactly what he does. He has, of course, relationships with big creators, with Cody Sanchez, for example, Justin Welsh, and so on, that he shares his posts with, and they engage with each other. Now, some people don't like this, especially what they call a pod. I don't either. A lot of people use them. Are they effective? Well, I haven't tested it out, not once, and I don't have the data for it. I don't recommend using any pods. What I do recommend, because it simply works, is building relationships. Danko mentioned this as well. The big creators are doing this because it works. Not all of them, but a lot of them, especially on LinkedIn. And they share their posts with each other. Basically most of them don't even share the posts with each other, but they have a mutual agreement basically and to engage with each other. With that, I mean, they comment under each other's posts whenever they see their comments. It's just a standard practice. It's just an unspoken rule, right? It just works both ways. You don't have to do this. Alex Hormozi, for example, you don't see him doing this. He doesn't need to, right? So what I prefer is building one-on-one relationships with people that you actually like, that you maybe want to meet in real life. And one of the things that you can help each other with is growing together on LinkedIn. But that's just one of the things, instead of these stupid pods that I think have a lot of negative consequences, especially because of the people who are in these pods, which usually don't work. You have some private ones I've heard of that perhaps are better, I don't know. And you don't have to do this either. All I'm saying and all I care about is the truth. And engagement on LinkedIn matters a lot. Comments matters a lot. That's the truth. So see for yourself, try it out if you want. And with that I mean building natural relationships with people that you actually share things with, perhaps even personal things or just tips on LinkedIn, whatever it is. And then see if that's worth your time. Because I do think it comes down to that. To me it is. And to Matt as well as many other big creators. And if you decide to share your posts with other people, make sure you remove the UTM link from it, which I believe is only copied when you share the link from a mobile. Right? So if you open a LinkedIn app and share a post from mobile, there's a UTM link within it. Remove that because LinkedIn doesn't like it and they can find out. If you share it with a bot, they don't like that. They can see it and they can ban you for it. That's another reason why I don't like these bots, because they are not allowed based on the TOS, terms of service from LinkedIn. Instead, use your own UTM link when you add a call to action in your post, an outgoing link that I talked about earlier or in your comment section. Justin Welsh does this a lot, I believe every time, and I will talk more about it later in this video. But whenever you see a UTM link, wherever, perhaps someone shares it with you, or you see it in Google, someone is referring to it, just avoid clicking on it if you see a UTM parameters within the link. Now that applies to LinkedIn, but of course Matt is also using these UTM links in his advantage, because what are they? They are used for tracking. You can see in your Google Analytics or any other free or paid tool that you use for your website, if you have a website, you can see where people came from when they open that link. Do they come from LinkedIn? You can add that into the UTM. This is what Justin Welsh does in order to analyze which posts perform better than others. He adds the date in the UTM link, which I started doing as well, so that I can see, okay, which day caused the most visitors to this link. And then I can look, okay, which platforms did I post on that day, which platform is mentioned in the UTM link, which you can also add outside of the date. Then you can quickly see, okay, LinkedIn yesterday got the most traffic to my page versus the post that I posted 1 week ago on LinkedIn, which was about a similar topic, but got much less visitors. Then you know, okay, this post is more effective to drive traffic to my website, wherever you lead them. Right, so Matt is also using these UTM links. I believe he uses Fathom Analytics, not Google Analytics. I believe it's a paid tool, I'm not sure. But he's using them throughout the course as well, which I thought was quite interesting. It just shows that these bigger creators do a lot to measure stuff, and I think that's a good thing, because it leaves you with more truth than untruth. So in his course, he has outgoing links to upsell people into other products. But let's go on. Number 12, the ultimate metric, according to Matt, are, what do you think? Reposts. That's the ultimate metric on LinkedIn, according to him, based on 2 years of posting. He mentioned that if he got 400 reposts, his whole post was likely to get over 500,000 impressions. So you can do the math on that. I'm not sure if it matters anyway, because you just want to get up your reposts as much as possible. He doesn't share any tactics on how he does this. I can make a future video about this. But just know it is the ultimate metric, according to him, on LinkedIn. Reposts. And they are difficult to get, because you basically want to make sure that someone reposts your post on LinkedIn, which is not the easiest platform because employers look at it. So if you write about something that someone is not proud of or make them look smarter, then it might not be something they repost. Once again, look at your data. See which posts already got more reposts than others, and try to see if there's any patterns there or things you can learn from your own posts. Which brings me to one thing that people care about too much, I should say, because it's just not that important. It is, but not that much, right? And it's about frequency and posting times. So how often should you post and what times should you post? This is completely up to you. I aim for daily. Matt does 1 post a day. Justin Welsh does 2 posts a day. But for Justin, he has more time to focus on fewer platforms because he's mainly active on LinkedIn. It's its biggest platform, I believe, in terms of size of his revenue. And he posts 2 times a day because he can, right? So this is not a rule. If you can only post a few times a week, then do that. But once a day seems to be a common practice and get you the most impressions. Because if you post 2 times a day, it seems to lower your impressions. But hey, if you have the time and you write good posts like Justin Welsh, maybe worth trying that as well. And again, looking at the data yourself. Don't believe me, don't believe Matt, don't believe anyone, even though they have 1 million followers. And then when does Matt post? Well, you can see this. It's around 8 a.m. EST. It's also time that I post roughly anywhere between 7 and 9 a.m. is good. I prefer to get more closer to 7 a.m. Right now I don't have any batch of posts ready, so I write them on the day itself. And today I'm already late. It's already 8 a.m. EST right now. But I try to get towards 7 a.m. because then most people in the US are active, which is my ideal audience. So it depends on your target audience. Where are they? Or with target audience, just a word that's used so much. Instead, just like what is the ideal person for you? Whatever your goal is on LinkedIn. I don't think it's become famous. I do think it's about money. So which type of people have bought the most of your stuff in the past? If you don't have any products right now, then I should focus on the US because they have more purchase power. But it depends. If you make videos in your local language, and if that's Spanish, then focus on Spanish hours, wherever that is. If it is in Brazil or Spain or anywhere else. For this, again, look also at the data. See what performs better. And now that I mention, if you don't have any product, I'm working on a workshop right now that you can sign up below for the waitlist, which will only cost you $1 when it's ready, where I go over A to Z, how you can launch your waitlist, how you can launch your first product, so you can actually start making money as soon as possible. I talk more about it in this video, but if you need money, it's much better to focus on money than on goodwill. By the way, this is a star. Alex Hormozi says, give all your stuff away for free. Now that works for some people, like him, but that isn't the case for most people, especially if you need money and you don't have it right now. But you want to do it the smart way. There's so many things that come down to it. Of course, the technical side, which I go over in the workshop, but then also the non-technical side. Because you want to make sure that you give way more than you ask. Because if you do that, like I do in this one, because this will only cost $1, whereas people already told me who got a sneak peek that it's worth over $500, well, that's a 500x. That will increase trust massively. Which means everyone who buys that and actually sees the workshop will have more trust and are likely to buy again in the future, whatever that may be. Or they don't and they leave a positive review. It just has so many second and third order consequences that are positive instead of negative. I mean, you probably bought a course before, and I'm actually making a video right now about the course that I watched from Matt. And I wouldn't be doing that if I thought it wasn't worth it. Now, of course, I learned things from it and I'm mostly sharing my lessons. But if it wasn't worth it, I would not privately to people who ask me, hey, what's a good course about LinkedIn? I wouldn't recommend it, right? I think you get the point, but nobody's talking about why you should launch workshops, why you should launch a waitlist, and how to actually make money. And I care about that, like anyone else, even though they may not say it. I care about the truth. And it's about making money while doing what you like, with things that feel effortless. And that's what I explain in the workshop. And just a quick side note, I'm not sure if it's still $1 when you watch this. Maybe you watch this 1 year from now. I don't know. At least I will always make sure that it's much higher valued than it will cost, right? And I recommend you to do the same with whatever you do, even if it's making a video, right? Because in any video, you ask someone for their time. So that brings me to number 14. Don't use a scheduling tool. Again, don't see that as a rule. Try it out yourself. But I've seen that myself as well. They definitely lower reach on LinkedIn. On Twitter, not as much. Even there, it's lowering reach, but not as much. But it makes sense for these platforms, just not like people who use schedulers. There's a lot of reasons for it, which I won't go about in this video. I can make a video about it if you want to. Just to give you the most important reasons why platforms don't like these. Well, you can't use new features of the platform in posting, right? Any feature you can use while posting, especially on Instagram. They have a lot of features which can increase reach if you use them. For example, using native music within Instagram, and especially TikTok, using these viral songs, of course, helps instead of using original audio. But usually these are not as important, especially on LinkedIn. The more important reason is these platforms don't like bots or any bots behavior. And of course, scheduling tools are not great. If you spend time on the platform, they make money because they can show you ads, right? You know this. But this is why the platforms want you to be there and post as well. They want you to be an actual user. And of course, it makes sense for them to put your post out to more people, increasing reach if you're very active on the platform. It's just better to not use a scheduling tool. What Matt does himself is he has a social media manager who does it for him. And while he's, or she, I'm not sure, is engaging with other people on the platform, that person is also posting out his post again around 8 a.m. Which brings me to number 15. Always try to find out what works better than others, especially when you optimize for impressions. See proof of concept within your space or just in general on LinkedIn or writing. I use this free Chrome extension. I believe it's called Clio on LinkedIn. Of course, they have paid features, so I just stick with the free stuff. And it allows me to see the best performing posts of someone, which is just very useful because you can quickly analyze, okay, what things work better than others for other people, and then use that as a base to iterate on. Or just see patterns that you can use. If you see all the posts using a specific word in their title, well, you may start to use that as well. But it's always about the why, not per se about the how or the what. Why does it work? Well, when you understand that, you can create yourself. You don't have to copy stuff. This is what I care about. Why? Truth. What is a truth? And if you want to know, again, I believe over 80 free tools already. You can access that free sheet in the links below. There's also tools in there for Instagram where you can see the most posts on Instagram, which took me a long time to find. But when I found that Chrome extension in that case, it's very useful to see proof of concept on Instagram. Which brings me to number 16. Repurpose your posts every 1 to 3 months. This is what these big creators do, roughly that time frame. So they rewrite the post. They often do not just copy paste it, but you can just again see what works for you. They often rewrite the post, try to improve it further, try to create a different image with the post, or just use the same image because the image on LinkedIn has a big impact. So let's say you, for instance, with Matt, his handwriting posts, he just looks at which ones perform best and then just change the copy, right? Or just includes a different picture that he shoot during the photo shoot. In my case, I have different pictures to use. For example, instead of a wooden background, we now test the black background or dark background or different lighting. You get the point, right? Or a different prop, even where the candle is shown and one it's just fully zoomed in, only the hand drawing. Which brings me to bottom five analysis. This is something I really like from Matt, especially the bottom 5 analysis, right? Very few people are looking at what performs really poorly for them. And with what performs well or what performs worse is quite personal. If you know exactly what brings in the most money, you optimize for money, which ones, then you can quickly see, okay, this post performed least. But it's more difficult to measure what makes you more money or less money on social platforms, right? So you usually look at impressions. So let's say you base this on impressions. Which ones got least impressions? I'm saying this small side note because even if a post got way less impressions, it can get you much more people to buy from you, or much more email signups, or much more views on YouTube, whatever you optimize for, link clicks, followers, that depends, right? And sometimes your worst performing posts in terms of impressions or like count or comments are better than others. It's actually often the case. It's quite a paradox because usually posts with much less comments, for example, are often people like, have you ever commented? I don't comment much. On LinkedIn I do, but not much on YouTube. So videos on YouTube with much less comments are often higher intelligent people, right? And the ones who comment a lot are often, well, just look at it yourself. You know the deal when it comes to comments on all these platforms. But this can help you to see, okay, which one performed the least and what do I want to change? Is there a pattern? If you wonder what Matt's average engagement rate looks like based on the data that he shared in the course, it's roughly 1.5% based on what I saw. Of course, posts that go viral are often a little bit lower than that because they get just way more impressions and engagement tends to become less. But this has been a pattern that I noticed with him. And these are his 90-day stats as of May 2024, which are impressive. Now he uses a tool called Taplio. Not sure if he's an advisor or getting sponsored by them. I do believe so. He doesn't mention it, which I don't think is a good choice because again, it lowers trust, at least within me, because he's recommending these tools everywhere, but not mentioning that he's getting sponsored or affiliated by them. So Matt, if you're watching this, I do think this is more important, especially on the long term. And since he mentions he wants to help 100 million founders, I do think this is really important. But again, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong and he's not sponsored or doesn't get any money from them. I just use the free stuff they have but I don't really recommend it because there's not much analytics you get in the free one. But he uses this to analyze his top 5, bottom 5 posts. I believe you can do this yourself within the LinkedIn analytics yourself, within the content tab. You can see which posts perform better than others, or of course you can do this very manually by scrolling through your most recent posts, or keeping track in Google Sheets of all of your posts and all of the data. By the way, I'm working on an automated dashboard for all platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, etc. If you want to have access when it's ready for free, join the WhatsApp group below. I will leave a link. We have a free WhatsApp community. Only for serious people though. I don't care about unserious people who ask questions that can be answered on Google. So don't join if you're that person. Serious questions, serious people. Which brings me to your LinkedIn profile setup. And by the way, these are not my things. Of course, I mix this with what I found to be true. Most of the stuff is coming from Matt here, especially this one, because he converts 19% of the people who visit his profile on LinkedIn into a follower. Now he mentioned, which is by the way very high, like for most people, it's a few percent, right? So it's 90% is extremely high, but he mentioned he optimized for conversions, not followers, even though that percentage is really high. So he sets up featured sections. You can see this all when you look at his profile and others. I don't think it's worth discussing here. This is more about the stuff that you can't really find that easily. And it's also not that important if you're not a big account yet, like me. You probably don't have a lot of followers or not growing as fast yet. But this stuff matters a lot in the future because, of course, if you get, in his case, he could be getting, I'm not sure, let's say 100,000 profile visits per month. Well, if you convert 19% versus 3% because you take some time to actually set up your profile, right? That's crazy. That's a different amount. That's 19,000 versus, let's say, 3,000. And of course, since he optimizes for conversions, that means a lot more money. So what does Matt mention? Well, a good profile converts 5% of visitors into followers. So aim for that. And of course, I would aim for much higher, but that's just me. Maybe you're satisfied with average, which is roughly 2 to 3. I think we can get towards 19.2. And probably this is more easy when you're still small. So just keep that in mind. So if you have a team like me, what I recommend you to consider is scheduling a recurring task in your project management software. I use ClickUp, free version also, which I, by the way, highly recommend because it's free and it's actually very useful, but you probably have one already. Just schedule a monthly recurring task, probably for your team if you can delegate this, where you use the, well, I said, I don't recommend the Taplio Chrome extension, the free stuff they have, but you can use it for this because they show you data in a very quick glance view. I believe you can see the same stuff also in your LinkedIn analytics, but it will quickly allow you to see, to divide your follower growth, all right? So not your current followers, but your follower growth, let's say 30 days, to divide that by your profile views. Now do that times 100% and you get a percentage. That's how you calculate it. And I recommend doing that monthly or letting it do monthly and keeping track of it in your dashboard if you have one already, or just somewhere in a Google Sheet or even a document, an Apple Note. So you can see how that changes over time because it is an important stat. I mean, you mentioned reposts are very important, but the people that follow you, if you have 1 month where people follow you a lot more because that percentage goes from 3 towards 7%, I do think it's a good sign if you're talking about stuff that you actually want to talk about, because those people are more interested than the people before. Followers, because if you follow someone, of course that shows intent that you want to see more of the stuff they post. And now when it comes to your featured sections, ideally you only have 2, but you can use more on LinkedIn. I believe you can show 3 or even more. But what Matt mentioned, which I think is very interesting, approach them as thumbnails, right? Approach them as thumbnails. This matters if you are getting more profile visits. I mean, I didn't spend much time on this. I spent some time on this, but this is worth optimizing once you get a lot of profile visits, right? And the more you get, the more time you probably want to spend on this, even though time doesn't equal higher quality or better converting. But approach this as a thumbnail perspective, right? Which one gets more a higher CTR? Even though you can't measure it, I believe it's really, they don't have that, which makes sense. You can measure the link that they click on through UTM link, right? So this is something I didn't mention, but it's quite advanced. But this is definitely useful if you want to approach this as a thumbnail process when you get a lot of profile visits and link clicks, right? What you can do is you can add that UTM, for example. You can then add the campaign type, for example. I'm not going into depth here. You can just figure it out yourself or access that workshop or sign up for the waitlist that I will launch for $1 when it's ready where I talk about this as well, and where I exactly show you how you can create them. But right now, just to keep it simple, you can mention in their featured section, right? And then you know, okay, that's coming from featured section, LinkedIn, and then you describe the thumbnail or whatever it is. You describe the link, and then you can see, okay, how many people actually convert from that thumbnail versus another one that you test maybe the next month, right? So you can start to measure the link clicks and therefore the percentage and therefore the CTR of that thumbnail. I mean, I hope that made sense. You don't have to do this. I don't do this, but this is definitely stuff for Matt that I think is worth doing for him. He should not be doing it, but I do think approaching it like this is worth doing for him and any account that gets a lot of link clicks. So if Justin Welsh is watching this, well, for him it's very useful. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not that impactful to change your thumbnail and to get more link clicks, but it seems like it. Which brings me to number 19. Matt is trying to push everyone towards his newsletter. This is something he does, right? Newsletter there. And that's where he sells, and that's his approach. I'm not sure if it's the best approach for you or for me. I'm mostly focused on YouTube right now, getting the people there, because I do think, for a lot of reasons that I've explained in different videos, that it's a platform that you should focus on if you are being smart, clever, because you're building more trust on YouTube, and it's the first platform I focus on. Even though LinkedIn takes much less time, I do think YouTube, but I'm biased, right? Everyone is biased. I'm on YouTube since 2012, right? I've one of my channels has already over 7,000 subscribers. We got over 5,000 in less than 7 months, with mostly unedited videos. With that I mean just silences removed, no fancy editing. I'll talk about it again on other videos, but there's big truths to be found in YouTube and the trust. Anyways, he's pushing them towards his newsletter. What he mentions is he has a one-page design where his conversion rate on that page is extremely high, because on that one page there is no scroll. There's only a sign up, I believe 3 testimonials, to check it out yourself, his newsletter page, and it has a very high percentage that converts into an email subscriber. So he recommends creating that page yourself as well and pushing that on all platforms to get people to sign up. Now for him, he has a very high percentage because he also has testimonials, I believe, of Cody Sanchez, who's very well known to some people, and of course the Shopify president, right? So these are crazy testimonials that perform really well. So what's the takeaway here? Well, I will be creating a single landing page in here that has no scroll, only email there, trying to get testimonials for them in the future, and of course try to optimize that for a higher percentage conversion of the right people, because that's something Matt doesn't mention, but it matters a lot, the right people. You don't want to just send out emails and pay for ConvertKit or Beehive hundreds or even $1,000 a month for sending emails to people that don't even read them, or read them but are never being able to afford your stuff or never be willing to implement it, which is even more important, right? They're not just serious people that are taking this serious because they care about it. And I'm not saying you should take LinkedIn serious, take this video serious, take me serious, but it's just not worth paying for email subscribers that are not serious, in my eyes, okay? Once again, never believe me. Don't believe anyone. Find the truth. And the truth is that Matt uses a lot of CTAs throughout his course, which is number 20. Course towards upsells, I believe even downsells, I'm not sure. But if you're not using CTAs yet, perhaps you have a course, perhaps you have products, at least lead people somewhere where they can access more of you. Well, perhaps it's just another video, perhaps it's just another product, perhaps it's more access in a different way. But if people find truth in if you're still watching this, you found truth in what I say, you found it valuable, you probably want to access more of it, of the truth that I share. So keep people that challenge. Use CTAs more often if you don't. In combination with UTM links, you can find out which ones even perform better than others. Which brings me to number 21, which is his landing page funnel. Throughout his course, he's pushing people towards this, where he shows a 9.5 minute video, which is particularly interesting. That's why I mention it, because he gives a good reason to sign up with their email for a call. So what does he do? Well, you can check it yourself if you do some Googling and research, but I will share you what he does, so you don't have to, even though I recommend to see it for yourself. What he does is he mentions quite a valuable resource that they can watch after signing up for a call, right? So it pushes the people that are hesitant to schedule a call over the edge, because they can now watch what he calls his content GPS, which is basically his whole funnel, right? How he structures all the different social media platforms, how he gets them to his email list, how he sells them, upsells them to his products, etc., and how he makes his money, basically. Just that whole process, that's what they get when they schedule a call on the next page, which I think is interesting to start using yourself if you already have all the other stuff in place, right? If you have a product and so on. Which brings me to number 22. How does he actually create these posts if he's not spending much time on it? Because I believe you know Matt Gray, and if you don't, he's quite well known on not spending so much time on his business. At least that's what he mentions. But he's not just about talking, he also shows it. So he's focusing on writing blogs for X, right? He focuses on that, writing tweets and threads on there, and he reuses them, he repurposes them across all the different platforms where he can. Of course, for YouTube, I believe he has hired a script writer for YouTube. For a lot of platforms, short form and stuff, you can reuse your threads, your X, etc., with some rewriting, right? With some formatting sometimes just really literally copy pasting. But that's where he spends his time on X. I'm not saying you should do the same, right? Everyone has their own systems, what works for them. I focus on YouTube long form, which to me is the masterpiece, this one. I use the transcript and so on in order for me to write a post about it, and then write tweets about that, and also write a LinkedIn post based on that, and then also on all the repurpose those parts on different platforms as well, which I think is a much better case because YouTube long form is just incredibly valuable. I talk about that in other videos as I mentioned, but the trust that you get from that, it's just, and I can just explain way more in depth in here, just more serious people. And I'm biased, right? I'm on YouTube since a long time, and I like YouTube a lot and video content. You may ask yourself, why am I not doing this? What is preventing me from creating YouTube long form? Because there's often just limited beliefs there, because you don't have to edit your videos, even though this video is probably edited. Some videos of mine are more edited than others. A long time I didn't edit them, and you don't have to. I've analyzed over 15 creators who went viral, got over 100,000 views on multiple videos without thumbnails, without any editing, even without silence removal, which I think is still worth doing. You can automate that using paid or even free tools. But there's reasons why you're not creating YouTube long form videos, which I think are worth investigating, because they're often false beliefs you held. And if you can see the truth, you will start to create more of these, or any of them at all if you have not created them. And they can literally change your life, either financially, or if you're looking for fame, for example, then of course, this is again a beautiful star. Beautiful star at that. But it can change your life, much more so than Instagram Reels can for most people, right? Don't believe me, this can work very well for some people. There are big creators who make a lot more money than some people who just focus on YouTube long form. You have to do the right things, and this is not a rule. For most people, YouTube long form is the thing they should be focusing on if they're optimizing for money. That's all I'm saying. And to find out for yourself, look at the data. But of course, people are too lazy to do that. So then just go based on your feelings from the results that you get. In order to do that, find the limiting beliefs and start creating more. Or not, I don't care. At least that's what I'm doing. And I'm not the only one. Alex Hormozi is posting even 3 to 4 hour videos right now, because YouTube long form simply is very effective for some people, for most people. So what does Matt do? He mentions he writes for around 3 hours or more. He has a blog dedicated at least once a week to write for Twitter, right? He uses Hype Fury, a paid tool. I believe he gets sponsored by them. So again, I don't think it's the best tool out there. I use a different paid tool, and I won't be mentioning it because I don't care about your affiliate money. But this is what he does. He writes for a long blog. He focuses on writing, and then those stuff gets repurposed and are basically becoming his LinkedIn posts. At least that's what he mentioned some time ago. I'm not sure if he has still the same process, but it makes sense because most stuff on Twitter can be reused for LinkedIn, especially if it's a thread post. Then you have to do some formatting, you have to create an SOP. In his case, because he delegates this to a social media manager, but you don't have to if you don't. But of course, then that can be reused. So if this is not happening, if you're not writing enough, because for LinkedIn you have to write, right? You don't have to. You can just put a hashtag, but you get the point, right? And on LinkedIn it performs better if you write. You probably write your posts yourself, or perhaps someone else writes them. Either way, especially if you write them yourself, which I do, you sometimes perhaps face writer's block. I'm not here to say if it's a real thing or not and what the reasons are. I'm just saying what Matt recommends if you face that. I'm just saying what someone else in the space who writes a lot recommends, which is Nicholas Cole. He says that he writes more than 8 hours a day sometimes. I'm not sure if that's true. That doesn't matter, but I found his framework very useful. And it is called the 5 magical ways to expand anything. Let's see, editor, can we put a video clip where he talks about it?
And I call it the 10 magical ways to expand anything. And the 10 ways are tips, stats, steps, lessons, benefits, reasons, mistakes, examples, questions, and personal stories.
So use that framework if you find it useful. And if you write on Twitter, because especially on Twitter, but maybe on Threads as well, because Threads from Instagram is very similar to Twitter. But especially on Twitter, Matt mentioned a quick tip. It's a small thing, but it works and it performs, help your post perform better. And it's to not number your threads. By the way, this can then be a thread, right? Do not number them. Even though you have the numbers, for example, in your LinkedIn post, you want to number, it makes it easier to read. On Threads, you don't want to number your posts in your thread, because Matt mentioned that apparently it lowers the amount of reposts. People are less likely to repost, probably because less people see it. And then this is my assumption, he didn't mention that. But I do think that when you can see these threads as individual posts as well. And when your individual point is numbered in a way, it's less likely to be pushed out, because people see number. Let's say you have a list post of 5, let's say that 5 magical ways to expand anything. And you see that post on Twitter or on Threads where it just starts already at number 3. You're less likely to read it, less likely to get engagement, because then people have to search up your profile, etc. Click multiple clicks to find the thread. So try to avoid using numbers in your thread posts on Twitter, perhaps also on Thread, and keep especially in mind why that could be the case, why it performs less. So this is good, this is bad, even though I don't like to say this is good or bad, because it's not really true. If you look at it from a performance standpoint, you probably want to avoid this. And then what Matt does is he combines his handwritten post with his more viral threads, right? He doesn't use any thread, but he uses his most viral threads in combination with the handwriting post, which of course is about a similar topic. That's what he does. I'm currently still writing my own post for LinkedIn. I'm not basing that on virality, but it's a clever thing, right? If you optimize for impressions, that could be a clever thing. And of course, you then need to have that data in a lot of posts where you look that up. For me, I just prefer right now writing it manually, but that's what he does, which eventually gets him 45% of his leads for his businesses from LinkedIn, which is crazy. Dan Coe mentioned roughly 40% comes from YouTube for his revenue. And if this is really true for Matt, then that's crazy. And LinkedIn has become my main priority next to YouTube long form. That's why I'm making this video also. That's why I watch this course. That's why I'm active daily on LinkedIn, and why I'm posting every day on LinkedIn, and why I'm implementing all of these stuff, especially the big impact thing. I've already mentioned it. If you want to know why YouTube is the most important platform, especially the 5 other things that I didn't mention in this video that I learned after analyzing those 15 creators that all went viral with unedited videos, then watch this video to learn them.